Hi, and welcome today to Celebrity Customer Experience Riffs with me, Jill Raff, where we riff on anything and everything related from employee experience to customer experience, because I am truly obsessed with employee experience creating outstanding customer experience. So, why celebrity customer experience? Because I feel that every customer deserves the same treatment, the same attention and pampering that a celebrity does. I believe also that your business can increase revenue, will increase revenue due to engaging with your employees and your customers. And it begins from the inside, which is why my proprietary process is called the Inside Out Framework, from EX to CX, because I guarantee you, outstanding employee experience will produce outstanding customer experience. So before we start today, I have an amazing guest for you. So excited to have him on. But I just want to encourage anyone who is watching live, and I am sorry for the few-minute delay. Again, these last few weeks in particular, I've got this new system and I have these amazing guests and I'm busy with having conversation with them and so excited that I get us started and then I forget to press the go live button. So on me again. So thank you for joining us today. And yeah, please definitely add your comments and join in on the conversation, which makes it much more fun. And if you're watching the replay, tag us in your comments. And Dennis and I will definitely be there to go back and answer your questions. So you heard me say Dennis. Dennis, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Jill. It's an amazing opportunity to be on the show with a friend and a colleague, someone that I can be a little bit more relaxed with.
Absolutely. I call Dennis my CX bro, and he really feels like the brother that I never had, and just an exceptional guy. Besides, you'll learn soon his brilliance, his mind, his care for people, and that's what I think really attracted me, was his just genuine soul, his genuine caring for people. So with that, I'll introduce my CX bro to you, Dennis. That alignment is amazing. And Dennis's mission is to help brands deliver the best-in-class customer experiences that ultimately result in growth by enhancing their customer lifetime value, their CLTV. He's the VP of CX Solutions for R.R. Donnelley, a global business communications firm specializing in the production, execution, and delivery of customer engagement tactics along the entire path of the purchase. In May of 2020, Dennis was named as one of the top 50 CX experts of the decade and ranks on social media among the top 150 CX influencers globally with more than 50,000 followers. So, yeah, impressive. Thank you so much for giving us your time and being with us.
It's so embarrassing. Thank you, Jill. I mean, it's a good list, but like you said, I think it's more about the people and sharing what we can with each other. And so thank you for having me on your show.
Of course, of course. So let's dive in. First, so everyone here can kind of learn who you are. Please give us some idea. Well, first of all, I see we have a couple people who are joining us. So I do want to recognize them. Amy Montgomery, love it. Jill, thank you for joining, Amy. And Alan Fred E. Jr.
Hey, Alan.
So, yeah. Thank y'all for being with us. Continue to write in your as you hear Dennis talking, and let us know what you think if you have any special questions. So as we get started, let's hear, Dennis, if you could tell us and share with us a bit about your background and your journey, kind of what lit your CX fire, so to speak, and got you into this world.
Well, since we're basically family here, I'll go way back. So the interesting thing about how I came into this role is it was unexpected. And it was really my grandmother. She's 102 years old this year. And my grandmother, she worked on a chicken farm growing up. And I don't know why, but she loves rotisserie chicken 100 years later. And so I was working at a restaurant. I was in charge of the marketing automation, which sent out email communications. I made sure every year on her birthday, she got a free chicken. And the coupon came. My wife took the coupon down to exchange it for the birthday gift for grandma, and there were no chickens at the restaurant. And it suddenly hit me, customer experience isn't just about creating demand. There's like a supply chain and a logistics part of this. So I started to try to uncover what were the relationships between logistics and supply chain, and the demand. And I realized in that particular instance that I had a really big problem to solve. I think when you talk about the spark, my wife was mad, my grandmother was mad, my CEO wasn't real happy that we didn't have chickens. So all of their needs, I think I felt, and I began to put together a process that balanced, harmonized supply and demand. Long story short, took me a couple of years, but I figured out that if you could project appropriately based on your marketing automation at scale, far enough ahead, and give that information to the procurement and supply chain, that you had more happy customers, or maybe even just more consistent customers, which I think when you talk about the value that I bring, I'm always in the context of revenue generation. And so customer lifetime value and balancing supply and demand, that's where I spend all my research and practice.
I love that as a child, you were able that you recognize the connection. And I love it. That first of all, gosh, congratulations. Amazing that your grandmother's 102 and still
Hello.
fantastic.
Good
How lucky.
genes.
Yeah, good genes indeed. That's fantastic. But that you were able to recognize her desire, right? There's a supply and demand, and her demand for the chickens, and you recognize then that there's something that goes behind why are there no chickens? There's a supply chain problem. And to really put those two together is pretty remarkable at such a younger age, to recognize that from that experience.
Well, thank you. And I think the other important part of it is I recognize my grandmother had a problem, but then it hit me, all the other customers. So that's really what drug me kicking and screaming into CX.
Yeah. Well, right. And I think that's actually a very valid point for everyone to think about in their business. A lot of times people just blow off someone's feedback because they're like, oh, it's just one customer. In fact, I have a whole section in my course that's called "It's Just One Customer, Think Again," because we all think, well, it's just one customer, no big deal. But that's not true, because one, if it's happening to one person, you can guarantee it's happening for others, like your grandmother with the supply and demand. Or if someone's having a really bad experience, it's probably not a one-off, or at least worth exploring, because it's never just one customer. And thirdly, it's never just one customer, because when that person leaves and is disgruntled, they're going to take to social media and review sites. And guess what? One person today turns into millions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So very interesting. I love that. So you are, and I'll just make you blush a little bit again, but being named a top CX influencer of the decade. So I think how we first met was we were on some of the other smaller, and I, not putting myself in equating myself to you, but we were both named from, top, 20 CX people to know, or top 150 global, whatever thought leaders. But you are a CX influencer of the decade.
Yeah.
And I think that really says a lot and hits home. And I think a lot of the reason that I've been able to perceive goes back to something on your website. And
Okay.
I'm going to put your website up there actually for everyone to see. It is his name. Oh, there's a space there. Sorry about that. So that's space.
One word. Yeah.
One word. Let me just make that quick correction.
Or they can just Google me.
Yeah, there we go. DennisWakabayshi.com.
Wow.
And so on your website, Dennis, you have very clearly highlighted 3 words: empathy, collaboration, and growth. I love that. Of course, that just totally resonated with me. But I think this has a lot to do with why you were recognized as the influencer of the decade, because not only do you these are the main pieces that you see are important in businesses, but these are definitely pieces that I feel like you live in your life. You have empathy. You bolster others. You are big on collaboration. We are doing a couple,
Yeah.
potential one for sure, and potentially a second collaboration together, which I am super excited about. And growth, right? Supporting each other through the growth. But tell us from your perspective what these three words mean in terms of why they're the keywords on your website and how you see them applying in the business that you do.
You know, thanks for asking about those key principles. There's a lot of ways I could answer that question, but what I want to do is answer it in the context of your audience. Because you take everything from the inside out, and you're have a special skill for transforming organizations by change within the employee culture, but that emanates out. And I would say empathy. So when you have empathy and you have collaboration, so caring about your mission, caring about the other stakeholders, your colleagues, your employees, all of the other players, right? It leads to collaboration. And what I want to say about a key takeaway for your audience is empathy and collaboration together are probably the two best business decisions any company could ever make, because the result is teamwork. Teamwork is free. You don't have to invest money into teamwork. If you can create a culture or a spirit amongst the employees or colleagues or stakeholders of teamwork, you get huge dividends that don't require a lot of monetary or additional funds to drive the change. So empathy and collaboration. And then once you see that you have this huge untapped potential in your own teamwork, then you realize growth. And that could be growth at the individual level. It could be growth in your profits. It could be growth in your stature or presence online. So I think those are three key ingredients anyone can latch onto, interpret it for themselves, and make it work for their business. And it's a little different than I think some of our other peers who might talk about people, process, platforms. I think empathy, let's care about each other and our work. Let's collaborate, and the rest will take care of itself.
Absolutely. I love that. 100%. I find that I've had recently, in particular, some businesses reach out to me to help them with their team lack of collaboration, with the disjoint, fractured company where everybody's kind of out for themselves. There's some nasty conversation going on, and they're missing that. And I do agree that it has to start from the beginning. Like empathy, you have to develop those feelings, that support from one another. And one of the things, you talk about a team. I think of a true team that really works cohesively and collaboratively is going to be a team that cares about each other, which is the empathy piece, but not just because they're working for each other. So a great quote by Vala Afshar says that we're not a team just because we work together. We're a team because we respect, trust, and care about each other.
Yeah.
I think that really is so important when you establish that in the beginning with the empathy. So empathy, I feel like there's the multiple things. My head's, I've got like popcorn going off in my brain. So again, it one of the things that ties in.
I'm back.
You there? I was like, you froze for a minute. I didn't know if you heard me. Are you there? Oh, there you are. Okay. Are you with us? Can you hear?
Come on back.
Hear me? Dennis, I can hear you. Can you hear me? So Brian just said, I'd recognize that well-dressed, smiling guy anywhere. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Okay, Dennis, you can hear me, correct? Can you give me a thumbs up? Can you hear me, Dennis? No. Uh, let me just check in. Dennis,
Oh,
can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you now.
Okay,
All right,
awesome.
welcome back. Hey,
Okay, welcome back. No problem. You know, technology. We're all learning that's what happens. No problem. So, just to bring everyone back to the conversation we were talking about the importance of establishing that empathy in order to create the collaboration to create great teamwork. And this is kind of also the foundation of my Inside Out framework is really uh, three simple E's. That's why I call it my E3 formula. It's educate times engage times entrust. And it really picks up on that quote that I mentioned with Vala Afshar about, really you're a team because you respect, trust, and care for each other. And that's established in the beginning by bringing on people into your company who had the same values and character. And then any skills can be taught, but you're really creating the human side. It's the emotional intelligence side of the business, which is, I think, so important today in order to establish that collaboration. Would you say, Dennis? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. And I think when we think about, I think collaboration and the teamwork is really where a lot of free value is. I think underneath that, once we can work together, we've got to execute. How do we execute?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that brings me to the next point, which is, I titled this particular show with you as the delivery of great CX. And, it's about delivering, creating that growth, the efficiency, the agility, and, CX strategy, development, execution, that this is something that you feel that's really important is that development, execution, and delivery across the entire path to purchase. And that is definitely your area of expertise. So can you dive in a little bit more to that?
sure. I would say that in every instance where I work with a brand, it really falls into a couple of categories. What is the brand's reputation? That's really the voice of the customer. And then what is the brand's reaction or reach into the marketplace? So there's an intersection there. Out of that, there is a conversion point at which relationships are born. And so those relationships are born and manifested through customer care, or you find that in social media. And I think just because I saw Brian join, another interesting intersection there is at heartbeat.com, they're connecting the customer directly with the brand to co-create content. So I think that those relationships is what we want to have if we want revenue. Ultimately, I think ad agencies typically play in this area of make the funnel bigger, reach out more. And I tend to believe that the more we service and collaborate with our customers, the more recency of purchase, the more frequency of purchase, and the more spend they trust with us as customer experience professionals or with as a brand. So I'm always looking for how do you strike the right balance between supply and demand, brand and customer. And I think in your work, what I love so much about your work is my practices rely on entirely on the people, and I love how you accelerate the collaboration in a brand. So I think we make a great right hand and left hand when it comes to helping a company achieve better revenues, happier employees, better experiences.
100%. And I think that's why the collaboration with us makes so much sense and does really work because, they work hand in hand, dealing with creating that environment inside the company with the people who are then going to be delivering on the elements that you are involved with the delivery side. So what would you say to people who are saying, well, okay, that sounds great. Like, how do I do this practically? Like, how do I implement what, with your knowledge from the agency side and from the journey, right? The entire supply chain and the delivery and taking the concept and idea that's going to affect their experience. What would you advise that people, feel like they could implement what you're suggesting?
You know, it's interesting that you brought that up. And I've been thinking a lot about if a company could do a single thing in 2021, what is the one and only move that is most valuable in terms of cost, benefit, ROI, customer relationships, employee relationships? And I really think that in 2020, we saw a lot of change. It was very difficult for many of us on a personal level, on an employment level, on a customer level. And what I also saw in the marketplace was the reorganization of companies. They began to innovate. They began to change the way teams work. And while some of those reactions in 2020 were imperative and unavoidable, I think in 2021, brands have an opportunity to create a level playing field across their new organization. So what I would say is 2021 for practitioners like us is the merger between employee experience and customer experience as a whole. And brands and companies that can get their new organized team all up to a level set as fast as possible, they're going to thrive, and they're going to reap the rewards of great teamwork and customer lifetime value.
Yeah, I have to agree 100%. I think 2020 and the pandemic has really heightened our awareness of the value of our employee and the value of all relationships, right? And I think it's sped things up, like the fact that even my connection to you, and I was saying to Nate yesterday, like there were last week, there were so many people that I've connected to in such a quick way, in a meaningful way, that I feel like prior to the pandemic would have taken so long to actually happen and to develop, or maybe wouldn't have even happened.
So I have a perspective on this, because you're right. I think that I often think of CX or EX people. I feel like we're late arrivals to the whole business conversation. But what's great about us is we have high emotional intelligence. So we're very empathetic. We listen first before we act. We seek to understand. We bond with each other. So I always think of CXers and EXers as the most friendly of your business people. But I also think of us even in a better way, which is we're the good guys and gals of business. We go in there and we say business is important, but not the cutthroat have to be here anymore. We can work together collaboratively. And when we collaborate internally, it means we collaborate externally, which means we have more trust and revenues grow. It's a simple process.
Right. It's the foundation. It's the meaning of happiness. And when you come in with that great energy, and like you say, it's the hospitality approach. It's for me, coming from the hospitality world, it's the hospitality mentality that we really are about experience. And when you say experience, whether it's the employee or customer side, experience is about touching a person's emotion. It's about creating some deeper impact and having that fun in a way. And so, yes, it's going in and maybe seeing the things that are wrong, but approaching it not because we're just looking to criticize, but really to say, how do we make it better for people? Because at the end of the day, we're all people, and people buy from people. And if you want your business to be successful and to be strong and to grow and to scale, you have to really look at it from the relationship currency perspective, that really it's about, that's your biggest asset, is look at the relationships, look at your people, both from the inside and the outside. And you're right. Yeah. I think that's what's been so fun for me, getting to know so many more of the EXCX world.
Yes. And I mean, we could go down the list. They're all great guys and gals whenever you meet them. But I think what I was going to say is, it's interesting you talk about scale, because scale in terms of growth for a brand. So I work with startups. I work with small to medium-sized business, but predominantly most of my work is with Fortune 500 brands. and scale and growth is on the minds of everyone. And ironically, the further you go up, the growth is like 1 or 2 or 3%. You're fighting just to get the smallest growth, and you apply all sorts of technologies. AI is a huge player in terms of capitalizing on 1%, 2%. I think that we see other technologies that create huge efficiencies and lower costs. As I mentioned, Heartbeat, they lower creative costs, they improve reach, and it all is in a better context for the customer. I think we see things like payment systems, transactions going into chat windows. Joined app is another one. So they're reducing the customer journey. There's 2 examples where there's no more journey. The customer and the brand are hand in hand, and that scales quickly. So I just think that it's important to just think about all these changing the changing environment and all the tools that are available to us to bring more happiness to more people in terms of growth, scaling happiness.
Scaling happiness. I like that. Well, certainly, the technology is tremendous and happening at like this crazy speed. And the thing that I always want to bring back to the picture is, let's not let, where the customer journey, yes, we want to reduce those friction points in the journey. But I worry and want to make sure that we are not reducing the journey so much so that we are removing the human element. And that at the end of the day, for certain types of businesses, it might work, depending on what it is. It could be a transaction. Like when you go to the ATM machine, I use this analogy a lot because to me, it's so poignant that you take money out of the wall, out of the machine, and it says, "Would you like another transaction?" Well, that's what it is. It's a transaction. There's no human element. There's no emotion. It's just a computer. And so that's fine for that. But for so many things, we cannot lose the human interaction. And that's what matters. In fact, Susan Pinker, she did a TEDx talk. The leading indicator of long life is social interaction with one another.
I saw that TED talk.
Right? Yeah, your mailman, that was just like, oh my God, I love that. And it really resonated. So for me, I think it's really important to use AI and use this amazing technology, which is crucial to take care of to those rote things, the things that don't need a human involved, and to increase the speed at which we're serving our customers so that we allow more time for genuine human interaction. To me, that's the
Yes, and I want to give a real world example where you are just spot on. In the last week, as you know, I'm hosting the 7th annual Digital Customer Experience Summit, and it's interesting that you brought up banking because I had an opportunity last week to speak to the CXO over at Barclays and the CXO of the largest bank in Canada, and in Canada, they had to have a special way that this segment of their business is all digital. So both of these gentlemen were talking about businesses that were all digital businesses. There's no Barclays retail location. So they sort of both opened my eyes, and you're right on the pulse as usual, that the connection, the intersection between technology and humans, it has to be a rewarding or a seamless experience. And if the technology doesn't augment the human experience, then it's a cost to the business. And that was a really eye-opening moment for me to have these gentlemen who were scaling, they were growing, and they were using it through technology, but they had human-centered design at the core of their value system, and it was really interesting.
Very interesting. I have to hear more about that offline because that human-centered experience. Yeah, that's it. We'll definitely. And oh my gosh, we're right at the 30-minute mark. And I said to you in the beginning, it's part of the problem. There's so much to talk about. That's okay. We can go a little bit into this. So But human-centered design, like to me, that is what it's about. That's really key and really important. So can you just touch briefly, I know in your position as the VP of CX solutions for R. Donnelley, you're involved and you have other partnerships. You're involved with, you know, making sure that whole supply chain works, that everyone's having that amazing experience and that growth, you know,
Yeah.
throughout the entire journey. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly right. And I don't want to take credit for it. The teams at R. Donnelley were born from logistics. So the foundation of logistics and operations is central to the way RRD does business globally. And so I really just, when I joined the team, I recognized that that was the piece that just on my personal journey I needed to tap into to balance supply and demand. That without the logistics, the ability to handle personally identifiable information, without that sort of governance and operational mindset at the core of your business, there is no way to connect the customer to a harmony between supply and demand. So R. Donnelley has this huge lineage of and historical value in all of these sectors, and now I just sort of get to jump on the piggyback on it for customer experiences, which it's just an amazing ride.
Well, that's awesome, and you raise a very good point that it's one thing to have these ideas, but then you need the tactical piece to deliver, right? To have that exact experience. So it's nice
A collaboration.
Yeah, collaboration, but you sit in the middle of that and being able to really tap into both your brilliance as and your forethought and your wonderful way to assess an entire environment and break it down and analyze it, and then have the tools to then be able to deliver on that. So that's
Yeah.
an amazing position, and thank goodness for so many customers who are experiencing the benefits of your work in doing that. So I want to just we'll kind of wrap up a little bit here
Let's
as
do it.
we're getting to the end of the time. You inspire me so much, and I know
Aw,
you inspire so many people that you work with. And you're the greatest cheerleader. You called yourself a cheerleader. I remember when we first met,
I am.
and I asked what you did. You're so humble, and you're like, "Oh, I'm just a great cheerleader for everyone else." Well, yes, you are. You're amazing at that, but you are so much beyond that, of course, and that's the beauty of who you are.
Aw,
Your humble soul. But I really just wanted to, I hope that we shined a little bit of light for people to see, your warmth, your brilliance, your kind-hearted soul. And I like to hear from others, because those who are inspiring us, what a little bit
yeah.
of something that might inspire you. And it could be something as simple as, a book, a person, a quote, some whatever. What is it that you find has been very inspirational for you, and why?
For me personally, I would say, I mean, since you're going to take it personal, my wife is she's a pillar of sunshine. You think I have a positive vibe. My wife, I don't think, she's just smiled through everything. She takes everything, every challenge with a smile, and she's always looking to extend that smile. So if anything, she's inspired me and trained me well. So I think you're just getting the benefit of I'm well trained. But she,
Oh, well, that's fantastic, and that's very beautiful. And I look forward to hopefully meeting your wife one time soon, because clearly she's an exceptional woman. And wow. you know, it's interesting to see how many people really do refer to other people in their lives, and
yeah.
not just a book or a quote. And I love that. And I think that ties into really the way we feel about this whole CX um, movement. I call it a movement because it's about the people, right? It's about the people in our lives at the end
So
of the day.
we always riff like this, Raph, but you sort of sparked something, and I just want to share it with you on the inspiration.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. It is for so many of us, we're inspired by the other people, and I think what we really want to do with our lives is scale this happiness. So I think every time we see somewhere that someone is happy, in the midst of a struggle. So my wife is working through some things now, but she keeps a smile on her face. When I see someone who exudes happiness despite whatever struggle there is, it reminds me of what brands do every day. There's no easy path for a brand to grow. Their growth isn't pain-free or easy. So those who can smile or help others smile in their process or journey, I think those are the winners in life. And at the end of the day, if we're not helping each other, why are we here?
Yes. Thank you. That is a great wrap up. And again, just really reinforces to, I'm always thinking about how do we achieve that? And for me, it's making sure that you develop that within your people inside with your employees, because when your
100%.
employees are happy and feeling good and they make a customer feel good with that engagement, with that interaction that they have, not a transaction, an interaction. I believe that we need to transform transactions into interactions, and they can change that person's life. They can, okay, that might be extreme, but with repeated connection, ultimately we don't know what people are going through to that day. So maybe by changing that day, that moment for them ultimately leads to something else that really might affect their life. So it's a great way to bring it back, because it is true of brands and in business, and why we have to make sure we bring in great people into our businesses, and that we take care of them and we equip them first, so that they can then make sure that they're having that great, happy impact on the end customer. They're the first line customer, right?
Awesome.
So,
Well, thank you
Dennis,
so much.
thank you so much. Do you have anything final to add today? Because it's hard to cut you off.
Yes, just thank you. Thank you to everyone who showed up today. Thank you to your audience. Thank you for the opportunity to continue to share a message of positivity to people. So thank you. And thanks for being my CXEX sister.
My pleasure. Thanks, bro. You're awesome. Really fabulous. So just hang with us for a minute. Uh, I want to thank everyone for really who joined us. And be sure, if you're watching the replay, tag us in your comments. Dennis and I would love to answer any questions or just respond to any ideas that you have to contribute. It is all about collaboration. And so we want you to collaborate with us as well. Stay tuned next week. I have a guest, Scott Stansfield. I was on his show a week or two ago. He is known as the modern longevitarian, and he comes from the restaurant world and really understands the pressures and what's involved in delivering that great experience, and how it impacts your health, your life, your longevity. And so we're going to continue the conversation that we started on his show here next Thursday, February 11th, same time, always Thursdays, 12 noon Central Time. So thanks again for being with us today. And we hope that you gained some value, and be sure to give us some feedback in the comments. Thank you.